Heyo, you're tuning into Toasted Reddit, where I cook your time with some Reddit stories. Right now we've got Am I the A, where OP tells his brother that he has no idea on what he is talking about because he is not a parent, and the people really don't like one of them. Or both. Our first story is by Reception Street. I have 3 kids under 5, with a 4th kid on the way. Before we had kids, my wife and I had lots of ideas about the parents we were going to be, and we had lots of scorn for people who parented in ways we disagreed with. But, as any parent knows, actually raising kids is harder and you will break your values. My brother is doing a psychology degree with a few modules on child psychology and development. He regularly tells me that he thinks iPad kids are spoiled brats who will struggle developmentally and they are the spawn of lazy and negligent parents. I wouldn't say my kids are iPad kids, but they do have an iPad between the 3 of them, and more screen time than I would ideally like, but sometimes them's the breaks. My brother also disapproves of the fact that we give our kids sweets as bribes occasionally and have lied to our kids. Every time he tells me his view on parenting, and I just laugh and tell him to try being a parent, and then I'll take his advice. Recently, due to an emergency, my wife and I needed a babysitter for a whole day. So I called my brother because, despite his judgment, he is actually very good with our kids. When we got home in the evening, the kids were in bed having had dinner, and we thanked him profusely. He very earnestly told us that now that he had experienced being a parent, he realized that not letting your kids use screens was very easy, and they hadn't watched TV or used their iPad in the 12 hours he'd been there. He also said he'd calm their fears. They had been aware of the emergency a little bit, read to them, not had to bribe them to do anything with sweets, and he dealt with very calm and relaxed children, as opposed to the brats they normally are when they're with me. His words. He gave us a 20-minute lecture about our bad parenting, and now that he was in position to give advice, he was going to give it. We'd been planning on giving him $200 to thank him for doing this for us short notice and looking after the kids for so long, but we sent him away without any pay. The next day, I called him up to tell him that I thought his behavior was incredibly inappropriate, and that I appreciated him looking after the kids, but it was better he didn't see them for a while, and that him springing all that on us, especially after the day of stress, showed how immature he really was. I told him that he actually didn't know anything about parenting because he wasn't a parent. I concede that I may have gone too far, but my mom called me up later to tell me my brother was crying, and she called me a D-head because he was just trying to help, and apparently I'm a bad parent for dealing with people's kindness so rudely. My brother and parents are peed off at me and not talking to me, so am I the A? And my take in this whole entire thing is that everyone sucks here. I'm going to start with OP. I am a firm believer that you do not have to be something in order to have an opinion on it. I don't need a medical degree to tell you what you should do if you have a fever or a cold. You know, stay in bed, drink tea, take a warm bath with some Epsom salt. I don't need a medical degree to tell you to do those things and, to just stay in your bed because you're sick and go to sleep. I don't need a medical degree to tell you that. And likewise, you don't need to be a parent in order to give parenting advice, because there's a lot of things that people on the outside see in a family that a lot of the people on the inside don't necessarily see. And you also just don't need to be a parent in order to give parenting advice. You just don't. There are a lot of things you can tell a parent that aren't incorrect if you're not a parent. You don't need to have kids to tell someone about advice with kids. For example, that somebody might have just looked up a lot of things on children and know a lot about children that OP doesn't know. In which case, the advice, I would say, is preferable compared to no advice. So, OP, you're an a-hole in that factor because you don't need to be a parent in order to give advice. Period. End of statement. But OP's brother is also an a-hole in this story because what he did essentially is he ate a cake and then is telling the baker how to make a better cake. Brother, you ate the cake. You have no idea what actually went into making that cake. And why do I say this? Well, kids always act better in front of people who aren't their parents. They always act uppity and much more cordial. That's not necessarily wrong or bad or good or whatever. It is just how kids are. They act a lot more cordial to people who they don't know because they want to give a good first impression. That is just how life goes. And so, OP's brother being with them for just a day is essentially him just eating a cake and then complaining to the baker, being like, hey, you should put like a little bit more sugar here, and also the icing is a little bit too fluffy, maybe make it a little bit more firm. Like, he is complaining about the cake he just ate to someone who actually baked the cake. Sure, you can give advice on baking a cake if you have an idea as to what goes into baking a cake, but at the same time, you didn't bake the cake, and yet you had the final product, and you're complaining that the final product is so much better than the ingredients. And it's like, no duh. And so OP's brother, he's got he's got child psychology and development modules in his degree. So he obviously has knowledge about kids. He can give advice because he's in a position where he's able to. He doesn't need to be a parent to give that advice. He just has good advice, or supposedly. I'm assuming, because, he's taking a whole entire course on it. But he also really can't complain to the baker who made the cake, and then he is enjoying the cake, and then complaining about how the baker should do this, that, and the other thing instead, because he didn't make the cake. He has only been there for a day. He ate a cake the entire day and is expecting the ingredients to be no different from the cake. This is a weird analogy, but this is to say, like, OP's brother is enjoying the good side of the ingredients. The kids are all uppity and acting good, or acting like good people. They're not complaining. They're doing what they're being told to do. They're acting like good children, period. That is essentially OP's brother eating a cake. He is eating the good part of the ingredients. But the ingredients have to be put together. They have, let's say back in the old times, you had to go get the egg, you had to go get the flour, you had to go get all this. You had to create that cake. And OP's brother is just enjoying the cake and then complaining about the people who went through the process to actually make said cake. Does that make more sense? I hope so. But we're going to move on to a comment, because I talked for way too long there. And down below, the very first comment is someone saying, "You're the A." They quote a part, and then they say, "This really set the tone for your post. You and your wife seem aggressive and judgmental. Something tells me your brother did not lecture you about your parenting and just reported how the kids did, and you took it way too personally. The higher the horse, the harder the fall." Exactly. OP started this post saying he had contempt for other parents and people who parented differently, and so when the brother let him know how their day went, and it was different on how they usually parent, that peed off OP, something he freely admits he does. To which then someone else says, "I read it that they had contempt before they had kids, and now that they have kids, they realize how wrong they were. And now his brother's doing the same thing, judging something that he hasn't lived himself. Now they have contempt for people who judge parents, aka exactly how they acted, so they're hypocrites." And then we get a little bit of common sense from Cannoli and Canoe. I read that completely wrong. I mean, it is pretty common experience. A lot of people start out with high ideals and find out that they have to get a little more flexible once they hit the reality of their particular kid. That is just normal, especially if you haven't spent significant time with young kids before. You don't sound like you have kids. Kids are typically better behaved for others than they are for their parents. Parents have it tough and often develop crutches to cope. That doesn't make what the parents do good or effective. If a parent relents to whining, then the kids will whine more. If a parent doesn't follow through on threats, then the kids won't believe the threats. It is a lot easier for a babysitter to follow through and be consistent when they aren't dealing with the kids 24/7 and likely not getting enough sleep. So, unless the parent asks for advice, it is best not to offer it. This is definitely everyone sucks here. And so now I ask you guys, what is your opinion? Do you think OP is the A, or do you think the brother is the A? Or are you with me and Lamacorn on saying everyone sucks here? Because I am definitely party everyone sucks here. You can give advice without being something, and you also shouldn't be complaining about the ingredients when you have only eaten the cake. So, let me know what you're thinking down below. Anywho, now, before we continue on, I just want to ask that if you are enjoying this so far, that you consider recommending this channel to friends and family, or just people you know, because the help for this channel is greatly appreciated. So, to continue on, and for the final Reddit post, which comes from Initial Arugula, I am planning my wedding for September of this year. It is the end of summer and also the month I met my fiancé. My sister, Kat, was supposed to get married 5 years ago, but her partner passed away in a motorcycle accident. She was devastated and had a hard time, and since then she's been very gloomy, and her relationships don't last long. She goes to therapy on and off. When I told my family that I was getting married, Kat was visibly sad, so my mom asked me to involve her in the planning and to ask for her opinion to make her feel a part of it. However, she didn't agree with my choice of September, thinking it's a bad month for a wedding. She also didn't like the colors I picked for the dress I wanted. I tried to listen to her sometimes, and at one point she said, "I can't believe you'll be the first daughter my, not our, father is going to walk down the aisle." I was gutted by this comment. I am not having a religious ceremony. My fiance's best friend got a license to officiate our marriage, so it's not that serious. With that in mind, I'm planning the wedding to reflect our personalities. My best friend suggested that the bridesmaids wear different colored dresses, but my sister didn't agree. She made some comments like, "It looked like a gay pride parade," and "You're turning your wedding into a gay wedding by listening to all of your friends' suggestions." Yes, my best friend is gay, but we have similar tastes, so his opinions are highly valued because they match mine. Last week, we were organizing the entrance of our bridesmaid and best man. In our culture, we call them godfathers or godmothers, and they enter together. I told her that my best friend would enter with his boyfriend, and my sister then said that my wedding was going to be an absolute circus, and that as my older sister, she should make me see reason. She insisted that two men shouldn't enter the ceremony together because not all guests would understand and appreciate it. Her comments were very annoying and homophobic. She continued with her remarks and even called my fiancé to get his opinion. At some point, I was fed up and yelled, "You are out of line because this is my wedding and not yours. Have your own wedding and plan it as you want." I was very angry, and my mom came out of the garden to see what was happening. Kat started crying and went to her room. It has been 5 days and she's giving me the silent treatment. She told my mom that she won't be attending my wedding. It is very annoying. She tries to make me feel uncomfortable. Like, for example, she's in the kitchen and if I enter, she then leaves. Yesterday, my mom said that I should apologize because my sister is fragile and this topic makes her suffer. However, I don't think that I'm much of an a-hole. My mother said that yelling at her was an a-hole move, even if I was right. And to give my 2-second opinion, OP, your mom is the a-hole in this story. Her daughter, Kat, she's grieving, and your mom immediately thinks, "Oh, I know what we should do. We should get my daughter, Kat, to be involved in wedding planning. You know, the thing that she was planning on doing with her husband at the time." Like, wow, great idea. Why didn't I think of that? What? Your mom is the a-hole of this story. Absolutely and 110%. Alright, we're gonna move on to the comments though. Not the A. I am sorry for your sister's loss. Truly. It sounds as though she has yet to finish her grieving process, and this is very, very triggering for her. Every bride deserves the wedding they want as long as it is done with respect and in congruency with their partner's wishes. Everyone else is a sidelined and attendee. Your sister is ruining what should be a joyful time. Your mother is enabling her behavior by making you the bad guy. You need to sit your parents down and discuss with them all the things your sister has done and tell them she clearly needs help and you don't appreciate having to put up with her mistreatment of you because she's in a fragile state. Your happiness is just as important as her grief. She's planning the wedding her and her fiance would have had, not ready to accept that this is your ceremony and day. Edit to add, if your mom is saying you owe the apology because weddings are hard on your sister, then your mother actually owes you the apology for forcing you to involve the sister, when mom knows it's going to be hard on her. Of course she needs more time. It has been 5 years. Some people grieve for a lifetime. On this sub, I have read stories of widows, widowers who never get over their loss. They do not want to find a new partner. They are concerned about raising their kids if they have them. The extended families do not get it. They push for the person to date, to find a new parent for the kids, etc. Sis is wrong for not hearing her sister. Sis is wrong for being upset when OP told her that this was her, OP's, wedding and to back off, and doing this avoidance behavior. But therapy is not guaranteed that Sis will ever truly heal from this loss. OP is not the A. As a widow, this is very true. But just as is the case with infertility or miscarriages, my grief is not your problem. The world doesn't stop because I'm sad. It has been almost 5 years since he passed away, but that is on me. My condolences for your loss. I do love your sentiment above though. If more people thought this way, the world would perhaps be kinder. And I agree with that sentiment. Just because your day is bad doesn't mean that everyone else's is bad, and also doesn't mean that everyone else around you should cater to your day being bad. It's a little bit grim, yeah, absolutely, but it's the truth. Just because I'm having a bad day doesn't mean I should try and make everyone else's day bad. Or just because I'm having a bad day doesn't mean everyone should cater their day to fit my apparition of what I think it is. Does that make sense? Anywho, let me know what your thoughts are down below. But anyways, now, before I end this off, I'ma just let you know about my podcast, where I post the same old stuff just in a form where you can listen to while going to bed, doing homework, or just something to listen to while working. But whatever the occasion, it'll be there. But enough of that. That is just about it for those stories today. And if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe to become a fellow bread bag. Though, aside from that, I post 2 new videos every day on YouTube, so I hope to see you next time toasting session. But until then, have a good one.